The race is heating up for the Charleston County Council's District 2 seat. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down exclusively with one of the candidates, Joe Bowers, one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Joe Bowers.
Quintin.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you as always.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
Well, listen, this talk around town is still, Governor McMaster wants 526 finished.
Yes, I mean, I just think it comes down, it's a common sense issue. We've had all this growth and development on Johns Island, and, having two-lane roads to get on and off the island, it's just not feasible. Because there's only those two ways that clogs up traffic on West Ashley and James Island, and this is just a common sense thing. I mean, you can see with Mount Pleasant, with the closure of 526, what it's done to Mount Pleasant. So imagine if we had that extra artery over there on the other side of the city, how much that would alleviate traffic. So I mean, it's just a common sense thing. I think it's really going to help traffic.
And you talk about Mount Pleasant. I know that Bob Bremer tweeted this on his Twitter page a couple of weeks ago. He says this, and this is the headline from the Post-Recorder too. Charleston Mount Pleasant officials say DOT kept them in the dark about Wando Bridge issues. So what more issues do you guys want to know about as far as people like you running for county council?
Well, I mean, this is something where, I feel the state should have communicated this to local officials so that they could have an emergency plan in place, and for when and if it did shut down, we need to have plans in place for that. And that's always, that bridge, I mean, outside of an ice storm, or high winds, you wouldn't expect it to be closed. So, and under those circumstances, people wouldn't be out on the roads. So shutting down that bridge on normal weather days, it's just not something that's expected. And there wasn't a plan in place, but the town of Mount Pleasant, Charleston County, the city of Charleston, they did a great job. And traffic seems to be getting slightly better every day, even though it's very difficult to deal with. And I sit in the traffic every day on my way downtown into work. So I mean, I just think communication. In my experience is serving an elected office, communication is the foundation to having an efficient government. And when you don't have communication, you can't get things done properly. And I think on the state's part, that's a little faux pas on their part, that they really need to get more in the habit of communicating with local governments when you have issues like this.
And let me go back to the Wando Bridge. Obviously, there's some rumors out there that it might be opening sooner than June 11th.
Well, again, I've heard whispers, but nothing 100% to confirm. It would be great. I don't think anybody would have any problems with it opening earlier. So I hope that is the case.
And when you talk about the future of 526, South Carolina Senate Transportation Chair, obviously Larry Groom, says, hey, the long-term confidence in that bridge is not there. And he says the bridge needs to be replaced right now.
I do agree with Larry. He has some wisdom in what he says, and I think the state needs to start, looking at funding. Where can we get money from to replace this bridge? Because, in the stuff that's been reported, only has a certain lifespan, and that the end of that lifespan is not too far away. So we need to start planning proactively. That's one of the problems I find in the state is we govern reactively. We need to start governing proactively so that we don't have problems with infrastructure like this in the future.
And let me talk more about problems in the bridges. This is from Channel 4's Twitter page, that is. It says this: DOT says a large hole under the Ravenel Bridge is not a structural or safety issue, and the bridge won't be closing because of it. What issue do you have with this?
Well, I mean, that, they drive those pilings down into the ground, that I think, it's just, a little Mother Nature thing. I've had a little small sinkhole thing in my yard.
Okay.
I mean, it's a common thing. I mean, it's not something large. It's not something I feel is too alarming. So.
And let me turn back to Charleston County Council. a race that
Yes.
you are going to be running against with Dickie Squares in 2 weeks.
Yes.
This is an opinion headline from the Postal Courier. It says this: spending shift threatens Greenbelt success. When you look at the Greenbelt, how much success does that have?
Well, I mean, there have been some successes with the Greenbelt program. But on the other hand, there has been, some issues. I know a lot of people have had have had misgivings about the park project in Allendale, understandably, and how that was handled. And I know a lot of people want to switch the funding formula on the Greenbelt funding, to switch it from majority rural to majority urban.
Right.
And that's something I agree with. That I feel, I live in the rural area, and I feel we have enough protected areas in the rural area with the Francis Marion, the Cape Romaine National Wildlife Refuge on that end of the county, and we also have part of the wildlife refuge down on the south end. And I mean, we really need to focus on protecting green space within our urban area.
And you talk about rural. Let me read a headline from News 2 just recently on May 9th. County Council approves recommendation for Maybank Pitchfork project. So what should that project look like in your mind?
Well, I mean, this is a great project, and we give some more traffic relief to Johns Island, and I don't think it's the end all be all. I still think we do need to finish 526. I agree with the governor on that, but this is one of those things. This is going to be a multi-layered approach to addressing the situations we have on the island, because we've had all the development over the past few decades, and we have not had any major infrastructure improvements for the island, which was not wise. And we need to. That's one of my things. Running for council, we need to institute more proactive planning when we have development going, and we need to make sure the infrastructure is in place before we have developments finished, because it's the way things have been going, it's just not sustainable to continue that way.
And let me stay on Johns Island, obviously. This is another editorial headline from the Postal Courier. It reads this: County Council was wrong to kill conservation plan on Johns Island. Were they wrong?
Well, this, the devil is in the details, that's what they always say. This project, this conservation easement, was in the path, the proposed path of the completion of Interstate 526.
Okay.
And County Council had no objection with doing this conservation easement, so long as the owner agreed upon, what the sale price would be when they would go in, in eminent domain the property, and the property owner would not agree. So the finger should not be pointed at County Council. I feel the finger should be pointed at the property owner, because County Council, in doing what they were doing, they were looking out for the best interest of the taxpayer and what is going to cost the taxpayer the least amount of money. So, I applaud County Council on that decision, because they were looking after the taxpayers.
And let me stay on properties and take you to North Charleston and the
Yes.
controversial neighbor hospital. Let me read the headline from the Postal Courier. It reads this: the property Charleston County bought for $33 million, will need $66 million in repairs. What got us from $33 million to $66 million?
Well, this was a bad deal from the beginning, and my opponent is quick to say that he voted against the purchase of the building, but he voted for the lease and everything that led up to us having to be forced to purchase the building. His explanation of things is, a little smoke and mirrors. Yes, this was a bad decision. I don't even think we should have leased the building in the beginning. I don't think it was a wise decision. That's in the past. You can't go and change the past. I really don't think it's worth the county investing $66 million into that building. It's not. I mean, you've seen the letters to the editor from former people who work for NUSC, and the former county administrator, and I really feel that this project. We really need to reevaluate this project. Honestly, as most people have said, and I believe it's true, it's probably going to be cheaper to demolish the building than it is to, and build a new one than it's going to be the end cost, because that building, when you look at the architectural style of it and everything, it's a dated building, and a lot of those buildings built in that era were not built, in my opinion, to last. And I just feel, $66 million, that's the minimal cost. And I'm gonna tell you right now, just in my experience in serving on the school board and working with the Charter School Association and seeing how government operates, I can tell you it's probably gonna be a heck of a lot more than $66 million.
And let me go back to you. I've known you for a long time.
Right.
You've been on the school board, you're involved with charter programs and whatnot, you're from Honda. But who is Joe Bowers for those people who still don't know who you are?
Well, I'm a local boy, grew up here. Conservative Republican, been involved with the party for quite a few years now, have held several positions within the party. And, I have a deep passion for making sure that our quality of life here in the Low Country stays the best that it is, and looking out for people here locally. I have a real large interest in local government and how it functions and how we can make local government more efficient for residents, because that's the whole purpose of county, municipal, and school districts, is to serve residents. Many people don't realize those local governments are created by the state to serve local residents, and I feel like we've kind of gotten away from that.
And when you look at June 12th, what would you consider victory?
Well, what I would consider a victory is that we get strong Republican candidates elected in this primary across the state, so that we can compete in the November general election.
Okay.
I feel like, here locally on the county, we need to make sure that we elect strong Republicans to maintain and strengthen our control on county council. A lot of people feel kind of betrayed. We worked hard last cycle to get Brantley Moody elected to return Republican control of council, but yet, even though we have Republican control, we have a Democratic chairman. And, a couple of weeks ago, all of our Republicans voted to confirm the Democratic County Party Chair, Brady, to the County Board of Zoning Appeals. Well, Brady's a great guy, I know him. I just feel kind of betrayed by the Republican members on them voting to confirm him, because, we worked so hard to get control of council, and for them to do something like this is kind of like a knife in the back.
And if you were to be elected on Charleston County Council, what would you do on day one?
My thing on day one is just going in and starting to build consensus to get things done, because I feel like that's one of the things that the incumbent has failed to do. He's been in there for 12 years, and he's the longest serving Republican on council, but has never been elected chairman, and does not communicate regularly with local officials in his area. In fact, I actually had several municipal council members in municipalities that are within the district say, who is this guy? I've never met him before. He just shows up out of the blue only because he has opposition. And that's something that I've always prided myself on. I always reach out to other local officials and keep them informed as to what's going on in the school system, and I plan to do the same thing on county council beginning on day one.
And does he communicate, meaning Dickie swears, with the constituents?
No, he does not regularly communicate. He does not have a newsletter. He only got on social media after I announced that I was running against him. So there's been no regular means of communication from him. And, I feel like that is something that really needs to change. People need to know what's going on in their county government.
Joe Bowers, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.